Rashford and Hove, riddle me that. The rest of y'all know where I'm lyrically at. Can't none of y'all mirror me back.
And we're back here, WHIP, Philly's #1 college radio station, 215-204-9449 is the number if you want to call and hang with us. And let's go out to Zach Berman of the Philadelphia Inquirer. He covers the Eagles. Zach, how are you?
I'm doing great. It's an absolute thrill to be on your show, Zach.
Well, it's great to have you back on. And how was your Thanksgiving? Did you have a good time with the Berman family?
I did. It's right during football season, so you don't get the full flavor that you do other time of year. But I did get that Thursday, so yes, that was good. But I've been hoping to come on your show. I remember when I was in college, I had a radio show, and it's just a thrill to be on your show.
Well, I appreciate it. What is on the Zach Berman Thanksgiving plate?
A lot of everything, to be honest with you. I like the side dishes the most: stuffing, the mashed potatoes, sweet potatoes. So a lot of that, and then I'm a sweet tooth, so I get a second helping of dessert while I can.
You're a big-time stud in this area. I told people I was having Zach Berman coming on the show today, and I get Twitter messages from Jess LeMay, Jess Chadwin, as you would know her from your high school days, Jamie Chadwin as well, your buddy Mike Cohen. He's good friends with me, but I heard an interesting story. I'm down at the Jersey Shore this summer, and I see your cousin, or it may be brother, and Michael Berman, playing you in basketball,
yeah.
And I heard that you lost to him.
I did.
You lost to a 13-year-old in basketball, Zach. Come on.
He's not 13 anymore. But no, he's a good player, and he's a good one-on-one player. I'm more of a 3-on-3 or 5-on-5 guy. I can't score. I can only distribute.
Your jump shot has to be better than our mutual friend Mike Cohen, though. He just can't play basketball.
I don't think my jump shot's better than anyone.
Well, I was in New York this past weekend for my Thanksgiving. It was great, and I actually wondered this watching both the Eagles and the Jets this past week. Who's in worse shape right now? You covered New York for a year.
Yeah, I'm not as intimately involved in the Jets situation. Hard for me to say much there because I'm not around them every day, but the Eagles are in bad shape. And I think the common denominator among the two teams is that there's a lot of uncertainty about the long-term situation at quarterback. And I don't need to tell you that because you know this league well. It's all about who you have at quarterback this season and going forward. And unless you have one of those guys, a stud franchise quarterback, it's hard to really be a factor in this league.
Well, what have you seen so far with Nick?
And they don't right now.
What do you see so far in Nick Foles, and do you think he can be that franchise guy? Because that's the big question right now here in Philadelphia.
Yeah, I touched on this some in Friday's Inquirer, and the jury's still out. Now, people I talk to say you need to kind of take it with a grain of salt because he doesn't have the pieces around him that a quarterback needs to have to be successful. Specifically, Deshaun Jackson's hurt now. LaShawn McCoy's hurt now. Their offensive line is totally depleted. They're missing 4 starters. So you do take that into consideration. But Nick Foles is a third-round pick. He was a third-round pick for a reason. He doesn't have the resume, or you can even argue the potential of an Andrew Luck or a Robert Griffin III. So you're really gambling when you take a quarterback there. And he definitely has Sunday night against the Cowboys, and likely a few games thereafter to show whether he can be the quarterback going forward. But he has not shown enough yet, Zach, to be that guy.
If Vic gets healthy and he recovers from this concussion, do you go with Vic or Foles for the next few weeks?
I go with Nick Foles, and I really
Agreed.
think that's the direction the team's going with. They're buying time because Michael Vick has not passed the baseline on the impact test yet. But at some point, that time's going to come, and they're going to have a decision to make. They're not saying what that decision will be, but I'd be very surprised if it's not Nick Foles.
Zach Gelb here, WHIP, Philly's #1 college radio station, talking to Zach Berman, who covers the Eagles for the Philadelphia Inquirer. And Zach Babin, that news was shocking. How much did it surprise you this week that he was cut?
Yeah, it surprised me the drastic step that they took. I mean, he played 40 snaps on Monday night, and then he's cut the next day. I had been expecting that they bench some veteran players, that they'd reduce playing time, that they start playing young players, but to all together cut Jason Babin, that's a major step, and it shows you that it's more than simply playing young guys. That's what the team's stated, but you never cut a guy if that's all it is. I mean, you can bench him if that's what it is. So they did save money in his salary. It does send a message in the locker room. So there's a few different variables there. But no, I was very surprised by how drastic the step was.
Babin has played a plethora of plays this year. I know his play has gone down. He hasn't been all that great, and he continued to ran his mouth. And I think he ran his way out of time, and his time was just up here in Philadelphia. But who replaces him? Because this is not a guy that just played a few plays here and there. He played a lot of plays.
Well, Brandon Graham will be the starting defensive end on Sunday against the Dallas Cowboys. Brandon Graham was, of course, a first-round pick in 2010 who's underachieved. Vinnie Curry was a second-round pick this year who just saw the field last week. The Eagles need to see what they have in Vinnie Curry. Darryl Tapp's another veteran who they have. And Phil Hunt, what a terrific preseason, has underachieved throughout the regular season. But he's a skilled pass rusher, was very productive in the Canadian Football League. So they're probably going to see what they have in him as well. But the two main guys to watch, Zach, are Brandon Graham and Vinnie Curry.
Babin laughed when he heard the news that he was cut from Andy Reid. Do you believe that he just lost respect for the head coach? Because I truly believe that Reid has lost this locker room.
Well, in regards to your first question about Babin losing respect for the head coach, I don't know if that's the case. He was, he was kind of an interesting guy in the sense that he has a way about him when he speaks with the media, when he speaks with reporters. He's a kind of an alpha personality, so to speak. So it didn't surprise me that was the response that he had, but I can only imagine he was caught off guard, because I can tell you everyone in the locker room was. In terms of Andy losing the locker room, I don't know if Andy's lost the locker room. I hear that expression. I mean, I'm in there every day. I just think it's a very flawed roster. I do think Andy's time has run its course in Philadelphia, but I don't think the players dislike Andy Reid. I just think they're not making plays. There's significant voids in certain areas in the locker room and on the field, and all those issues kind of compounded at one time to create a 3-8 season.
Here's the thing. You have this team, and they were big-time talkers over the last 2 years. It all started with Vince Young, who's no longer on this team, calling them a dream team. Then Vic called them a dynasty. I still don't get how you call a team a dynasty when you haven't even won at least one Super Bowl yet. And then you also had Babin calling out the fans, and Deshaun Jackson was running his mouth before he got his contract. Now he's been kind of less and less of a talker. But Andy Reid here, his time has run its toll. He's done phenomenal things, getting to 5 NFC Conference Championship games, getting to that Super Bowl where he lost for the Patriots. He wasn't able to win that big game, but is there anything he can do to save his job, or is he gone at the end of the year, in your opinion?
No, I think he's gone at the end of the year. I mean, team owner Jeffrey Lurie made it abundantly clear that 8-8 would not be acceptable. They needed to show substantial improvement from last season. Well, they're 3-8 right now. The best they can be is 8-8, and I can almost assure you they're not going to win out.
No chance.
They have a much likelier chance of losing out, of finishing 3-13 and being in contention for the top pick. I mean, this is not a good team that they're going to field on Sunday night against the Cowboys. So, yeah, I don't see a situation in which Andy Reid is going to come back to Philadelphia. And I think if every person in that facility was giving truth serum, the coaches, the players, they'd admit the same.
So it's just a respect thing to keep Andy in here right now and not fire him halfway through the season.
Yeah, respect's one way. I mean, Jeffrey Lurie has a lot of respect for Andy Reid. As you mentioned, he's done a lot of good here. It also wouldn't serve a purpose. There's not a person on the staff who you want to see how he handles that role. I think there's going to be a complete makeover of the coaching staff. And it's not like you want to win these last few games with a different coach. I can only see it happening if it became too big of a distraction for Andy. But I don't think Andy's going to let it become that. I mean, he knows the business. He spent his lifetime in this business. He knows the business. He knows what the expectations were. He knows how to answer the question about his job security. So I don't think it's something that is going to become more of a distraction than it already is.
Can this team and management, can they find a way to lure in a big name like a John Gruden or a Bill Cowher?
Well, I think this management has the money to lure almost anyone they want. I don't think that's the direction they're going to go, Zach. I don't think John Gruden or
I don't think they
Cowher,
want the job, those two guys.
Well, I just don't think that's the profile coach the Eagles are going to go after. I think they're much more apt to go after an up-and-coming coach, whether it's a coordinator or a college coach with, a guy like Chip Kelly I can see here, an up-and-coming coordinator such as Greg Roman or Gus Bradley, Mike McCoy, coaches like that. I don't think you're going to see the big-name coach. I think one thing you will see is a more traditional front office structure where you have a general manager and a head coach, and you don't have kind of the head coach overseeing everything. That's an antiquated model, and the only coaches who really do that anymore, besides Andy, are Bill Belichick and Mike Shanahan. So I don't see it happening in that regard.
You know who's going to get a lot of play at the end of the year? Bruce Arians, because the job he's doing with the Colts, taking over for Chuck Pagano, who has leukemia, has been absolutely phenomenal. I don't know if Bruce Arians will end up here. He's more of an older guy, but you have to imagine he'll get an interview or two around the league.
He's a Temple guy.
That's right, baby.
Your listeners are going to like that.
T for Temple, yeah. We should sing it,
yeah.
ZB.
Yeah, former Temple coach. No, Bruce Arians has done a terrific job. And, frankly, he did great work with Pittsburgh developing Ben Roethlisberger. So, yeah, you need to think Bruce Arians will be in consideration at some places. I think the Eagles, as I said, are going to go more of a younger route. But if Bruce Arians is a candidate here or somewhere else, it's certainly merited.
A few more as we're talking to ZB. Zach Berman of the Philadelphia Inquirer before he has to go run out to practice as the Eagles get ready to take on the Cowboys. You look at this defense, Nnamdi, he has a clause in his contract that he could leave at the end of this year. Is that going to be the case for the Eagles?
Well, first off, in terms of his contract, it is manageable in terms of getting out of it for the team. I don't know if that's going to be the case, frankly. A lot of people are thinking that way. I think a new coach can come in, look at Nnamdi Asomugha, and try to build a defense that more suits his skill set. I don't think he'll play in Philadelphia next year under the salary he's on the books for. They can renegotiate that salary. I don't know if the market is going to be as robust for Nnamdi Asomugha as it was 2 years ago. So he could either stay here, or if he wants to go and test the market, he'd probably be in a position to do that if he refuses to take a pay cut. But I don't see a situation where he plays under his allocated salary next year.
You've seen this defense this year, and at times they look good. That was more earlier in the season, but now they're just absolutely horrific. Ever since they lost Juan Castillo, they've just gone down and down and down over another Temple guy in Bulls. But you see Juan Castillo, was he scapegoated by the Philadelphia Eagles management?
Scapegoat is a strong word, but I think there was a misevaluation in that decision. First off, it was a misevaluation in making him defensive coordinator. It was probably a misevaluation in firing him as defensive coordinator, Zach. It was a decision made very abruptly. They had a winning record at the time. They had lost 2 consecutive fourth-quarter leads. I recognize that, but they weren't a bad defense, and they've been a very bad defense since. Now, you could argue that some of the problems were on the verge of occurring at that time. If you look at the defensive breakdowns in the Detroit game before the bye week, which was Juan's final game. But I don't think he was made a scapegoat per se. I think that it was the decision that Andy made that he thought could fix what he saw as a declining defense, but it didn't fix it. As a matter of fact, it just opened those floodgates even more.
I'm surprised that we've gone through this whole interview before we let you go, and you haven't found a way to make a Syracuse reference about how you beat my Owls over the Thanksgiving weekend.
Yeah. Well, my view of Syracuse is a little different in that I covered them all 4 years there, so I don't have the fanaticism for them. I certainly follow Syracuse some, but I'm a Philly guy too, so I follow Temple as well, and I like what Agazio is doing there. I'm worried, frankly, about the future of the Big East. What do you think is going to happen there, Zach?
The Big East is in shambles. We actually had the AD of Rutgers on, Tim Pernetti, the other day talking about their decision to leave. I'll tell you this right now, Zach. You're going to have to keep those Catholic schools here to save the basketball kind of things, like a Villanova and a Georgetown to keep the basketball conference strong. But for football, they look doomed. I know they're bringing in Boise State, but it makes no sense like a team like Boise State's playing in the Big East. They need a name change. The conference just has to find a new identity.
Yeah, I think, I used to cover the ACC, so I still have a lot of connections down there, and it just really looks like the Big East is in serious trouble for all sports. And I wouldn't be surprised if some of those basketball schools look around and say, "What are we still doing here? Why are our non-revenue sports, our Olympic sports, playing teams in faraway markets?" It's obviously done for football, but it wouldn't shock me if there's further moves down the line.
Zach, I appreciate the time. Let's do it again real soon.
I look forward to it. Good work.
Zach Berman there with the Philadelphia Inquirer. We'll take a quick break, and we'll be back right after these short messages.